All right, so here is my finished painting of Viola Fry, the ceramicist. And I used a brush that had wet edges and was really kind of broken up. And if you zoom in, you can kind of see that. It's slightly impressionistic. But it all comes together in the end to look like a fairly representational version of my aunt, right? Kind of captures her. I guess the one thing, it's always good to get some time. The one thing I'm not so happy with are the glasses right here. And so when we talk about finishing techniques, I can work on my signature a little bit, separate my first and last name a bit. Now we can use all the advantages of digital art. So if I don't like how those glasses work, I'm going to make a new layer, hold down Option. Oh, actually, I already did that. Great. So I have this combined layer here of everything, which I just held down Option and merged visible. And I'm going to take just this lens of the glasses, going to duplicate it on its own layer, and I'm going to transform it and warp it a little bit because I need it to be a little bit bigger and squarer to not distract. Not quite just so rounded out. And then I can take that copy, and these are just compositing techniques, right? And I can erase gently from them a little bit and kind of get that shadow underneath them in. I can also use dodge and burn. So if I think that this is a little too dark right there, I can lighten the midtones slightly just by dodging them without having to repaint. Or if I think little aspects of those glasses need to be darker, I can go to the burn tool and with the midtones darken some of those tones. And this will pick up my brush strokes. And I can do that, of course, to my flattened image too. So if I want the hair to be a little bit darker in certain places. I love dodging and burning my own brush strokes because it saturates the colors in interesting ways. It's, to me, a lot more satisfying than doing this to just photo reference, like we did in compositing. If I want underneath the chin to be a little bit darker, I just burn it a little bit. Or around the eyes, under the nose. And if I turn on all the layers underneath, I can see the difference that makes. Right. I can even decide to kind of bring back some of those. And same thing, I can dodge it if there's certain areas where it feels a little too dark, or there's little highlights that I didn't quite do justice. I can bring those out with dodge and burn after I'm done with my painting. Now I tend to always overdo it, so I like to have a little copy underneath. Right? That I can work it with. And I can erase away some of the edges if I think that will help too. They're distracting. So, those are ways of finishing it off, but it still looks very believable and representational, but I like that idea. Let's see, I can even do clone stamping like we've done in past projects if I want to bring certain touches of color from one other place in the painting into this. And of course I can paint little touch-ups. If I want more detail. I'm still on my signature brush though with the signature colors. So I'd want to change that. Actually, that's not bad. All right. So now, how do we submit it? I'm going to darken my signature a little bit. How do we submit it? Okay. So first we save it as a Photoshop file, assignment 9 with your name in it. Oh, I see one little thing I can work on. Brighten that, smooth that a little bit. So as I want to refine my dodging and burning a little bit more, I can take its exposure down. I usually like to have it below 30, so it's a little more subtle. But this is bringing out all those brush strokes in the neck, which I like because they kind of show age. All right, and then maybe burn just a slight jawline back in. I think I got a little too dark on the inside of that eye. All right, so let's submit this, and then I'm going to show you how I can play with it to make it print ready and to do some other things. So I'm going to save it. I'm happy with this. This could be a good portfolio piece. It's a fairly representational painting. I see little things I can tweak still. All right, now we're good. And then I'm going to save it as a JPEG. Make sure it's not over 5 megabytes after I've saved it as a PSD. And this will be just for PhotoBucket to the desktop. So let's see what the size is. So at the maximum, it's a little too big, but if I put it on 10, it should be just fine. There we go. And then you're also going to save your reference image. And I might even crop this. Because even though I used a few reference images, this was the dominant one. I'll call this photo reference or portrait reference. Okay, so now I've got these 2 JPEGs to put into PhotoBucket. And I'm going to put it in the instructor demonstration part of this assignment, assignment 9. That you will put it into the assignment folder. And this is the first time I've actually done someone in my family. So that's kind of fun as a demo. And then you are going to name them. Here, I'll do it this way. so that they line up in the right order. You do not need to upload your sketch or anything else. Though if you want to, it can be an interesting process. I always have a hard time getting PhotoBucket to recognize that. So I will call this Carl 2, and then the photo reference Carl 1. All right, now let's see what else we could do. Being digital, if I want to print this, I could go lots of different ways. Here's a past example. I have kind of a representational portrait, though very colorful. I could play with abstracting it, making it non-representational, trying different stylistic experiments. And my experiment I want to try is making her more like her ceramics, which I thought I could do with just my brush, but my kind of observational painting habits take over, and she ended up looking pretty representational. So now on a new layer up above everything, I'm going to really try to push it a little bit. First, I might make a duplicate of my main paint layer, and I might try to play with its adjustments. First, its levels, like really making the brights bright, really making the darks dark, pushing the midtones one way or the other. Right? I could play with the color balances, not making it look so rosy. You know, play with the midtones, mess with them a little bit. And these are all ways to get what I think is going to be a more interesting print. My version, my ideal version of the portrait. A little bit more depth in the shadows. Definitely more red. Midtones, maybe a little bit more yellow. Okay, so already there we have a big change. Really pushing the extremes. Sometimes that can even just help your representational portrait, right? Like this might look better than this. Just like a photo can often look better with a little processing. Not right out of the camera. So this might be the first step of changing it, altering it a little bit, making it my own. So I'll save it again. Okay, now I can get kind of crazy. So what I'm going to do is merge everything and turn off the backgrounds. So now layer, merge, visible. And I'm going to, these only didn't erase because they're all locked. But I want to get rid of all of these. I don't want to flatten the image because I don't want the background to fill in white. So unfortunately that means I have to turn all these on and then unlock each one to delete them. And then I'm going to save this with a different name. And I'll keep these backgrounds. But all of these I'm going to get rid of. All right. Actually, I think I want the gray background for now, just to see it. Now I'm going to save it with a different name so I can experiment. I'll just call it Experiments or Abstraction, which means I'm going to heavily stylize my portrait now.